One of the nation's top quarterbacks is down to two schools, and defensive line recruiting, well, it wins championships.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back into the portal. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst and writer. Thank you for making the portal your first listen each and every day, coming in with all the news on what's going on around the recruiting world, NIL, and of course, the transfer portal itself. And today I've got two main topics. Number one, Jared Curtis, quarterback out of Christian High School in Nashville, Tennessee. He's down to two schools. We're going to discuss why his recruitment is not only important for those two institutions, but how the dominoes will follow thereafter. And the big topic of the last several weeks has been defensive line. Why? Well, the team that won the national title had a great defensive line in the Ohio State Buckeyes. And if you watched the Super Bowl, don't take my word for it, ask Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs. Defensive linemen, when they are dominant up front and you can drop seven, it is really difficult to move the football. Even Mahomes got his butt kicked because they just couldn't block the guys up front for the Eagles. So we're going to talk about key defensive linemen from the 25 class and several in the class of 26 as well. But we start with Jared Curtis. He is down to Oregon and he is down to Georgia, where he was originally committed. He's no longer going to visit, from what I'm told, South Carolina or Auburn, and the other schools are also out. March visits, 4 days each, are going to be to Oregon and Georgia, the 8th through the 12th and the 13th through the 16th. And then I assume he'll take OVs as well in either May or June. I don't know if those dates are going to change or anything else, but we need to get through the dates coming up in March. The rumor has it that right now the Ducks lead, and this is impactful in many different ways. Jonas Williams committed to Oregon, flips to SC. This might be the reason why. Maybe Oregon thinks they're really going to get Jared. And if they do, that's that. And okay, I get it. Jared's a great player. But what about Georgia? If they don't get Jared, who would they get? Their dominoes would change. And to be honest, I'm not sure which exact quarterback or quarterbacks they would pivot to. It's a difficult thing to project. Remember now, Kirby, he's a pretty traditional guy in what he wants in a quarterback. Jared's mobile, but he's not a pure going to go out on the edge and make three guys miss and take it down the sideline for 80 yards and a score. So he wants more of a traditional quarterback that can make the first guy miss, extend the play, and at least get a dump off and get something positive out of it. If nothing else, just get rid of the football. Don't take a negative play. That's all he really asked for. He wants to dominate in the trenches and win, as we're going to talk about here in a minute, with the defensive line recruiting and offensive line. Those are the things that he wants to do, and Georgia's been highly successful at it. But I think it's more important for them to get Curtis than Oregon. Oregon's quarterback room is way better than Georgia's right now. That's just a fact. Dante Moore's got 2 years of eligibility. And then you also have a scenario where they've got backups like Luke Moga's third or fourth team, and he's a great athlete. He's a boomer bust guy. But if that's your option down the road, they're really in a good spot. And they've got other options too that are on the board. So if they don't get Curtis, we'll see how it goes. But I like where Oregon sits right now overall in terms of their room. And from all indications, Jared is leaning that way. I'm sure NIL will play a major factor in where he ends up, but he's going to make a lot of money wherever he goes. So the last thing that I'm going to say on this, and I'm just going by what I've learned from different people and just talking to fans, who do you really, really want to play for? Stein or Bobo? That's going to be a major part of this component of making a decision too. Jared Curtis can play for anybody. He's that good. He's a top 10 recruit by anybody's account, might be the best player in the country. And I'm guessing that Stein has the edge based on how Oregon's offense looked last year compared to how Bobo and Georgia's offense looked. That's just my opinion. But a quarterback that a lot of people thought was going to go high in the draft ended up coming back to college and transferring after playing with Bobo last year. I'm sure there's going to be some negative recruiting. Maybe I'm wrong, but that is my strong indication. When we come back, we're going to talk about defensive line. This is something that Kirby and his group are doing well, but there's some new schools involved at the top of the pecking order with defensive line recruiting and a few that need to pick it up as well. That is next here on The Portal. With PrizePicks, you pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. It's fast, easy, and keeps every game exciting. This week, I'm going to be looking to put Jason Tatum in for 29 points, Anthony Davis for more than 12 boards, and that's just one example. You could do NBA, you could do hockey, you could do about anything you want, and again, it's just one simple outlook. Is it going to be more or less on 2 or more player projections? And it's not that hard. So get fast payouts when you win. You get your money in as little as 15 minutes. So that's kind of cool. So make sure you check out PrizePicks, download the app today, and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 off instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. If you want to win championships, you always got to have trenches. We just talked about Jared Curtis, one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Well, if you're not protecting him, no matter if it's Oregon or Georgia, it doesn't matter, right? Well, in the 25 cycle, the state of Georgia, ironically, was dominant. It had 3 really good players. Isaiah Gibson goes to Georgia. Justice Terry surprised some people. He decided to go to Texas. And that was a kid that I actually got to meet and be around quite a few times. That one surprised me a little, but if you don't get some of those, Texas needs to stay towards the top. They got to get some of those defensive linemen. I'm sure the NIL was really good for him. And then Elijah Griffin out of Savannah Christian, UGA was his pick as well. Those are tradition-rich programs, but it's a little bit different kind of moving forward because Javion Hill's a kid out of Cocoa, Florida. He's going to Missouri. That one was a big surprise. He might be the best pure pass rusher on the edge in the country. So the Missouri Tigers get a big-time prospect. Jared Smith stayed home. He's from Thompson, just outside of Birmingham, goes to Auburn. And Southern Cal gets Jakeem Stewart, a kid that reclassed, got all the upside in the world, but he's only played in like 11 high school games due to transfer rules and whatnot. We'll see how that goes, but he has an extremely high level of talent, and his technique for a kid his age is incredible. Moving to this class, it's more spread out, even more so than the last few kids that I just mentioned. Like Zion Ely, some think he has the highest upside of any of the pass rushers. He's from St. Francis in Baltimore. He's committed to Maryland, and why schools like Penn State and Oregon and all these different schools, Auburn, they all made a run at him. Looks like he's going to be sticking with the Maryland Terrapins. It's cool to see somebody different get a big-time player, so maybe Ely ends up being the guy that changes the fortune for the Maryland football program. They can't seem to get over the top, but one of the main reasons – they'll oftentimes have good offense, but defensively, they just don't have enough playmakers, especially down in the trenches, that depth that you need. Zion Ely could be that guy for them. Anthony Jones, he's a kid from St. Paul's Episcopal down in Mobile. Now, there could be an out-of-state school that gets in on it, but it looks like that one is going to be a little more traditional. Bama and Auburn, probably. Pick which one you want. That's what most people think. Georgia and some other schools involved too. That's a 6'4", 240-pound athlete. Could play strong side, could play weak side. It doesn't matter. Really good football player. Aiden Harris from Weddington High School, just outside of Charlotte. Ohio State. It's kind of a random one for a kid in North Carolina. With Mac Brown stepping down, and now you got Bill Belichick at UNC. Could they possibly swing in and get him? His brother's also a really good football player. It's probably a package deal wherever he goes. But right now it looks like Ohio State. Harris is probably a kid that could play 3-tech or strong side. He's just really good. That is a pass rusher. And if some of these schools want to get in and beat the Ohio States and whatnot, they can't let them come into their backyard and take players. He's from the Charlotte area. If UNC loses him, that's not a good sign. DeVaron Geralds, we call him Deuce, from Collins Hill, just outside of Atlanta. Ole Miss, he's got family ties there. Miami, Ohio State, and several other programs. He's got a list across the country. He's one of the more intriguing players. He can play 3-tech. But he's not the tallest guy, even though he's got really good technique. 6'1.5", 6'2". Could he play edge in some defenses? Possibly. I really don't know where he's going to go. Could it be Auburn? Could it be Tennessee? Could it be Bama? Something like that. It's very possible that he could end up at any school, depending on how his visits go. And there's still a long way to go through spring to even get all the visits completely lined up. Gerald's is a kid that you should watch. If you have not seen his huddle film, he is legit. He's played against the elite Atlanta competition, and he's a great kid. I think Gerald's will be an impact player at the college level. Right now, Rivals has him in their top 25 nationally, and it's for a good reason. Another kid from Georgia's Bryce Perry-Wright. He's from Buford, just north of Atlanta. Clemson, Georgia, Texas, Texas A&M, Auburn. A lot of different schools involved. He's got ties to the state or to Clemson. We'll see where he goes. Georgia's kind of circled back around on him. They weren't super high on him early, is what the rumor is. Maybe it's because of his height. He's about 6'2". He looked pretty good at Under Armour. This is another kid. Is if you're going to beat Georgia, if you're going to beat Alabama, you got to get some of these kids out of the deep South. What about somebody like Michigan or somebody like that coming and getting to visit? You never know with the NIL world. I really think that he will be a very good one gap and go defensive tackle at the college level. Maybe Bryce Perry-Wright leaves the area, maybe he doesn't, but his list is still pretty broad, so there's a long way to go. And here's a kid that some people don't talk about enough. I'm very high on him because I had a chance to see him work out last summer with Coach L in Birmingham. Tyson Bacon, he plays at Hoover High School, tradition-rich program, committed to the Tennessee Vols because they got in on him very, very early. But now Bama, now Georgia, now Miami, now other schools are coming in. It'll be interesting to see what he does. Because, again, this is in one of those situations where if you're going to beat those tradition-rich schools, they usually have the kids in their backyard. You got to steal a few of them. Does somebody get him out of there like Tennessee? Getting him from Hoover would be a coup for the Vols. They need more defensive linemen to keep what they've been doing on defense. They had a great D last year. They had gotten some of those kids. They got to keep that up. If it goes to Bama or Georgia, it's kind of back to the old same song and dance. So we'll see how that goes. With D-line recruiting, though, when you look at your school, ask yourself these three things. Did we sign a pure pass rusher? Did we get enough numbers? And did we get enough balance? A guy that can play each spot. If you have a hole at nose guard, at D tackle, strong side in, weak side in, I don't care if you're playing a four-man line like that, or if you're in a three-man line, you got a stand-up backer that's essentially a defensive end. Did you get a guy for each spot? If you didn't, that next class is pivotal. You must win along the trenches in the defensive line to have any shot to win a national title. And that's why these teams, the last 3 years, Georgia, then Michigan, Ohio State, look where those kids from those schools ended up. And look at the Eagles. 3 of the guys for Georgia Bulldogs play for the Eagles now. And they were in the backfield in Patrick Mahomes' face. Coincidence? Not really. So that's going to do it for today's show. Thank you very much for watching the Locked On Portal podcast. You can get us on Apple, Spotify, and wherever you get your pods. Have a great day, and I will see you again soon.